It's all yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I am so excited to be here with all of you. My name is Jessica Frederiksen. I am the Director of Brain Health at Goodwin Living, and I also work with other volunteers and county representatives for Dementia Friendly Arlington. Really excited to be able to share with you today what our Dementia Friendly Virginia info session is all about. Is it possible to allow me to share my screen?
Yes. Let me make you co-host.
Thank you. And so one of the first things, I want to talk about, and you can shout it out or type it in the chat, but what are some words that come to mind when you hear the word dementia or you think of dementia?
Confusion.
Confusion. Somebody put in the chat, Ditzy. What else? Loss, childlike.
Yeah.
And memory lapse.
Problems with memory.
Problems with memory. Yeah. So a lot of the things that we think of are not positive. Not necessarily positive. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is that, some of those things, confusion, memory loss, they are a part of dementia, but there is also a lot more to dementia than those symptoms. There's other physical things that happen, but also there's a lot of connection and a lot of quality of life that people can still have with their dementia. So we, in the interest of time, won't go around and have everyone share their name and why they're interested in being a dementia friend, but you can certainly put that in the chat if you want to. What we're going to talk about is what is dementia, know the most common type of dementia, understand the Dementia Friends 5 key messages about dementia, learn how to effectively communicate with a person living with dementia, and then we'll each choose a small action as a dementia friend in your community. So we talked about these things, these words that come up when we're talking about dementia. What dementia is its umbrella term. So there are multiple types of dementia. The most common is Alzheimer's disease. Vast majority of people with dementia have Alzheimer's disease. Less common types are dementia with Lewy bodies, frontotemporal dementia, vascular dementia, Parkinson's with dementia. Each different type of dementia has different symptoms and different progressions. So if you or someone you know gets a diagnosis, doctor tells you, oh, you have dementia, it's really worth digging in a little bit deeper and pushing to say, well, what kind of dementia do I have? And it can be hard to tell in the early stages, but being able to determine what's causing the dementia can be really important. So this is one of my favorite slides because usually people get a little bit of relief here. There is certain cognitive decline that happens when we age normally. We never lose our ability to learn new things, but sometimes the process of memory or the speed of memory might slow down a little bit. So these are signs of normal aging or just normal forgetfulness versus some early signs and symptoms of dementia. So number one, normal aging might be that we sometimes forget a name or we forget an appointment, but we remember later. We realize, oh shoot, I forgot that, or yes, that's the word I was looking for. An early symptom of dementia would be memory loss that disrupts daily life. So not just forgetting an appointment here and there, but forgetting, did I eat lunch today? Things that are really getting in the way of you being able to have a smooth day, make sure you get all your meals, all your appointments, things like that. Number two, making occasional errors when balancing a checkbook. That makes sense. We all do that sometimes. What is potentially a sign of dementia is challenges in planning or solving problems. So, not knowing how to solve a bigger challenge, something goes wrong or unexpected, and you're not able to kind of flexibly figure out what the solution might be. Number three, needing occasional help to use the settings on a microwave or to record a TV show. We all need help with that. Technology is always changing. That is normal. Versus a sign of dementia could be difficulty completing familiar tasks at home, at work, or at leisure. So if you, always cook in the kitchen and you are familiar with that, that's something you do all the time, and then suddenly you're messing up a bunch of the ingredients or leaving the stove on, that could be a sign that there's something more going on. Number four, normal aging, confused about the day of the week, but recalling it later. That can happen, especially if we're, not really writing the date on things anymore. We don't do that often, like when we were in school and you had to write the date on the paper at the top of your paper. So that can be normal versus confusion with time or place. So an early sign of dementia might be, well, I don't know what day of the week it is, but also, is it March or is it April? That kind of deeper confusion with time and place. Normal aging can be vision changes related to cataracts. An early sign of dementia could be trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So as dementia comes in and progresses, someone's vision really goes from wide, being able to see and look at everything, to more and more narrow and kind of binocular level. So that can cause some challenges with vision and just with understanding depth perception and things like that. Number six, sometimes having trouble finding the right word. That happens to me a lot, as we can't find the word, it's on the tip of your tongue. And that's normal. A sign of dementia could be new problems with words and speaking or writing. So it's not just a word every once in a while that you're struggling with, but maybe you have a new challenge where certain words you can't really explain or form the sentence correctly. You're just struggling to communicate that way. Number seven, misplacing things from time to time and retracing your steps to find them. That is normal. We all do that. Versus an early sign and symptom of dementia is misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. That ability to retrace your steps too can affect you. If you are driving, if you're walking somewhere and it might be a neighborhood that you've always walked or driven in, and suddenly you're getting lost and you can't find your way back. You can't retrace your steps. That can be a big sign that there's something going on related to dementia in the brain. Number eight, making a bad decision once in a while. Some challenges with judgment. We all have that, versus decreased or poor judgment. And one of the things that I like to use an example here is kind of simple, but if you think about it, I worked with a gentleman who loved to go for a walk in his neighborhood, and then he moved to a busier neighborhood where there were a lot of stoplights and crosswalks, and you had to wait to notice the sign and cross. And one of the challenges that he faced when he started getting dementia was that some of that judgment of, oh, I need to stop and not just cross the street because I think I can cross the street. That some of that judgment and safety awareness around making sure there isn't a car coming when we're walking the street. How do we kind of problem solve? Judgment in terms of, okay, I'm going to go out for a walk. It's really cold out, but I'm not going to bring a coat. Those are some simple ways that poor judgment can show up. Normal aging, sometimes feeling weary of work, family, social obligations, that can be normal aging. It could also be a sign of something that's, a mental health challenge, but not dementia. Sudden withdrawal from work or social activities is always a sign of concern. If it's kind of sudden and dramatic, that can be a sign of Alzheimer's disease or dementia, because often people are struggling to keep up in the group, or they're struggling to keep up with everything on their plate. So withdrawal can happen. It can also be a sign of, some depression or anxiety. So that's something to look out for. And then the last one, number 10, developing very specific ways of doing things, becoming irritable when our routine is disruptive. We can all experience that, versus changes in mood and personality. So if there is a drastic, change in mood, dementia does not inherently cause personalities to change, but it does sometimes lower someone's inhibition, lower their filter. So someone who never cursed or swore might suddenly be saying things that are really out of character. Or the other thing that happens is that sensory uncomfortability. So like if you're too hot, or it's too loud, that kind of frustration weighs a lot more heavily on someone with dementia. And so they might have an outburst that to us doesn't quite make sense, but the reality is they're experiencing something that we can't quite see. And so that's the challenge there.
Hey, Jessica, we've got a comment here. When this person's dad had a cognitive evaluation, the doctor led him through several exercises that involved remembering a series of steps in a specific order. Why did he focus on sequential relationships rather than other markers?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And without knowing what test that was, I can't say 100% what he was looking for. But there are different tasks that we do affect different types of the brain. I use the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, the MoCA, when I'm doing brain health assessments, and certain questions on that test are really targeting different things going on in the brain. And so with that sequential relationship, you're working that part of your brain that's able to plan, kind of our executive function. So that ability kind of to complete familiar tasks. So kind of this number 3 we were talking about. If you can follow that sequence, remember that sequence, then it shows that your planning is intact. Your executive function, being able to carry out a day-to-day task, is still intact. Or it shows that there's a gap there that we can look at and try to figure out what's going on in more detail. Great question. Any other questions before I move on?
Not so far.
Great. All right. So I'm going to go through, for the sake of time, our PowerPoint here, and then share a video. But I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions at the end, and we get through the 5 key messages. So one of the things that we want you to take away: dementia is not a normal part of aging. It's not a guarantee that as you get older, you get dementia. It is a disease. Second one, dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. We do have a lot of preventive factors. Even with those factors, you can do everything right. It's caused by diseases of the brain. Dementia is not just about having memory problems. There are other challenges that happen with dementia. It is possible to have a good quality of life with dementia, and there's more to the person than their dementia. So people are whole and complete and living with dementia still have their personality and heart and connection. Okay, now I'm gonna flip to a video. You should be able to hear it because I think I shared
Add
with Sam.
sparkle to any design with glitter stickers by Sticker Mule. Glitter stickers are a fun way to showcase your.
So this, I'm just gonna let it load for a second. This is a video that really describes the process of what happens in the brain with dementia.
Dementia is caused by a disease that damages brain cells. This damage interferes with how brain cells communicate with each other. When brain cells cannot communicate, a person's thinking, behavior, and feelings can be affected. The brain has many different areas and each one is responsible for different functions. For example, memory, judgment, and movement. When cells in an area of the brain are damaged, that area cannot function efficiently. Think of your brain as a set of bookcases. The books in one bookcase are memories, logic, procedures, and the knowledge you have acquired over a lifetime. Let's call this your logical brain. In the other bookcase, the books are your emotions and feelings. Love, happiness, sadness, anger, confidence, acceptance, rejection. Let's call this your emotional brain. In the early stages of dementia, the logical brain begins to lose some of the ability to remember things or people. The logical brain may no longer have the ability to remember names or dates or how to perform certain tasks. As dementia progresses, this part of the logical brain begins to stop functioning. At first, it may be complex thinking and procedures that become hard to complete. Skills like math, using language, completing procedural tasks start to fade. As the dementia progresses, more and more of these memories, knowledge, and ways of doing things continue to fade away. The logical brain becomes incapable of remembering or completing tasks. Also, the emotional brain begins to lose some of its ability to control emotions. In the later stages of dementia, the logical brain can no longer function. Memories are gone. The ability to complete even the smallest and simplest tasks are gone, and many of the emotions are gone. However, the emotional brain continues to have some functionality, and emotions become paramount in person-to-person interactions. In the latest stages of dementia, someone may not be able to remember your name or even have the ability to communicate, but often they will still have the ability to feel.
So the key to that video is that people with dementia still have that ability to feel. So even though they might not remember what you did, if you visit, a loved one, if you spend time with someone living with dementia, they'll remember how you made them feel long after they remember, oh yeah, my friend was here and we went to lunch. So kind of explains the process that we lose memory in dementia. I think it's a good overview. Facts and complex thinking falls away quickly, and emotions and feelings will remain longer. So in this picture, we have a healthy brain and a brain with advanced Alzheimer's disease. If you want to shout out anything that you notice about the difference in those two pictures.
The Alzheimer's brain seems to be atrophied.
Yes. Yes, atrophied. There's bigger spaces in between that gray matter and that white matter in the brain, and the brain is actually shrunk. So things take longer. Brain messages take longer to process, and also there's less brain matter there to hold on to the memories and processes. Everyday tasks. So if you had to guess, how many steps do you think it takes to brush your teeth?
Maybe six
Yeah.
or seven.
6 or 7, okay. Believe it or not, I've done this group where we've come up with 50 different steps to brush your teeth. When most of us, without dementia, neurotypical brain, we're gonna think, okay, I need to grab the toothbrush, put the toothpaste on it, put it under the water, maybe put it under the water first, then the toothpaste, and then brush my teeth. But for someone living with dementia, we say, grab the toothbrush. Well, where is the toothbrush? Do I have to go into the bathroom? Do I have to think about, is it in a drawer? Do I have to open the drawer? Do I have to, turn the light on? Just really understanding how many steps we actually do when we do a simple task is a lot more than we think. So when we're working with or talking with people living with dementia, we want to really break down those steps so that we can set them up for success. We're not going to give them a step that's really 10 steps in one, but breaking the tasks down. And that leads us into our communication. So these are some general communication tips. Treat the person with dignity and respect. We acknowledge that individuals and individuals living with dementia are adults. They are inherently, worthy of respect, dignity. We want to be aware of our own feelings. So if you're feeling anxious or frustrated or sad, the person with dementia is going to pick up on that, but they may not be able to pick up on the context of why you're feeling that way. So if you, just came in and there was a ton of traffic, and so you're frustrated, stressed from being in traffic, and you come to talk with someone living with dementia, they might pick up on the fact that you're frustrated, but they don't have that context, that they can't process that context that, oh, maybe she's not frustrated at me, maybe she's frustrated at traffic or something else. And so our nonverbal cues are really important. So taking a moment, kind of center ourselves, be aware of our feelings is really important when communicating with someone living with dementia. Be patient and supportive. People living with dementia, sometimes it can take up to 60 seconds for something you say to be heard, processed, and for you to get an answer back. So being patient, not asking a bunch of questions at once, but asking one question at a time, giving some silence to hear an answer back, and going from there. And you can tell, if you say something to someone and they're kind of staring straight ahead, or they're focused, then maybe they're still thinking about it. If you say something and someone starts, looking all over the room after a little while, then they've probably gotten distracted, and you can say something else or move on to something else. Be patient and supportive, offer comfort and reassurance. We never want to criticize or correct. So even if someone says something that, doesn't make sense, or if they say something that's not accurate, sometimes this will happen if someone with dementia especially, more moderate dementia, might confuse names of their children with names of their parents or names of their grandkids. We don't want to jump in and correct and say, no, Shelby's not your daughter. She's your mom or, your granddaughter. We don't want to jump in and correct. It just creates stress for the person living with dementia. It makes it more likely that they'll shut down and not feel comfortable communicating. We never want to argue. So this can come up a lot if someone with dementia, is maybe they're trying to reach out to their parents or they think that they're still working. So maybe they're trying to get to work or they're asking, why am I not at work today? What's going on? Never want to argue and insist like, what do you mean you're retired? When we create that argument, that just creates tension between us and the person living with dementia. And we want to, avoid that and really be partners. To be partners, you can offer a guess. That can be a great way to increase communication. If you think you know what they might say, you can offer a guess and see if your guess is right. And if it's not, that's okay. Offer another one or let them share. And then encourage nonverbal communication. So there's a lot that you can do with nonverbal communication, a lot that you can do with music, sitting and listening to music together, singing, which is a form of verbal communication, but it just also works that nonverbal piece. And sometimes just sitting and holding someone's hand, sometimes pointing or looking at pictures of something together can be a good way to communicate without stressing about finding the right words. Some conversation tips come from the front. Identify yourself and keep good eye contact. If they're seated, you want to go down to their level. So you're looking eye to eye. You don't want to be hovering over them. And always identify yourself. So we don't want to quiz people living with dementia. They might pretend that they know who we are, even if they have forgotten. And then, we're not doing anybody any good if we haven't identified ourselves. So sometimes people living with dementia might remember how they feel around us. They remember that, if it's a loved one, that they love us and they enjoy spending time with us, but they might not remember our name or our relationship. So it can be really helpful to say, hi, Heather, it's me, your daughter, or hi, Mom, it's me, Jessica, identifying yourself. Call the person by their preferred name to get their attention. When I'm working with people living with dementia or spending time with them, I'll often go, especially if it's somebody I know that I've talked to before, I'll talk to them by their first name that they prefer to be called, because then they know, oh, this is someone I know, so we can have a conversation. Use short phrases, ask one question at a time, use a gentle and relaxed tone, really pay attention to that nonverbal communication. And then waiting for that response while the person takes that time to process what it is that you've said. Provide a statement rather than a question. So often questions might not be answered because someone might not fully understand what it is that you're asking. And so the safest answer is to say no. So instead of saying, do you need to use the bathroom? You can say, the bathroom is right here. Instead of saying, oh, do you want to go to this art therapy group with me? You can say, come with me. Let's check this out. And then, of course, if the person sees what's going on, doesn't want to stay, then we honor that. But using statements instead of questions. Speak directly and, use the actual noun or verb that you are talking about. Don't say, oh, here it is, or, oh, go do that. We want to say, please come here, your shower is ready, or here is your hat, instead of just saying, here it is. Turn negatives into positives. And again, we want to acknowledge people living with dementia are adults and they want to still and deserve to still have their autonomy and decision making. So if something, someone's making a decision that maybe we feel is not ideal or not safe, instead of saying, oh no, don't go there, or oh no, don't go outside without your coat, it's cold, we can say, let's go here, let's go sit in the living room instead, or it's cold outside, let's go have a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate instead, using positive statements instead of no. Giving visual cues, pointing or touching, and then avoid quizzing. So reminiscing can be healthy, sometimes looking at pictures or videos, looking at things that might remind them of past events. But we don't want to quiz. We don't want to ask, oh, do you remember this? When was this? Do you remember this person? You know this person? Because if the person doesn't, that's really stressful. And instead, looking at those types of things, reminiscing just in general. Oh, wow, what do you think of this picture? Have you ever been there? And just being willing to accept whatever answer comes out. If they don't remember and they say, no, I don't remember ever going there. But wow, look, it's beautiful. Just rolling with that, no judgment or correction. And then sometimes it can be helpful to use written notes or pictures as reminders if the person with dementia is able to understand them. Okay, so back to those 5 key messages that we talked about at the beginning. Number 1, dementia is not a normal part of aging. Number 2, dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. 3, dementia is not just about having memory problems. 4, it's possible to have a good quality of life with dementia. And number 5, which I think is the most important, in my opinion, there's more to the person than the dementia. So we'll have time for some questions and conversation, but now that you have taken this Dementia Friends training, you've learned these 5 key messages, we want to challenge you, Dementia Friends Virginia wants to challenge you to take that understanding and turn it into action. So you can choose on your own, you can share if you want, but you can choose on your own one of these action steps. It could be as simple as getting in touch and staying in touch with someone you know living with dementia, supporting our dementia-friendly efforts in your community, volunteering for an organization that helps people with dementia, campaigning for change, advocacy events, encouraging others to become dementia friends, to take this training, to learn more, or to just carry out a personal action like, yeah, I'm going to be more patient when I'm out in my community, and adopting some of these practices in your personal or professional life. We have a lot of resources in our community. The Alzheimer's Association helpline is available to anybody, whether you have dementia, whether you're an official caregiver, or if you just have a friend with dementia, you have some questions about it, you can always call them. We have the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services, area agencies on aging. So there's one in Arlington, there's one in every county as well that you can go to for resources and support. Virginia Navigator is a great site that can kind of direct you to different avenues as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat and see everyone's faces. And I would love to know if there are any questions. I love the comment, my bookcases have never been this neat. I agree. My bookcases are pretty messy as well. But any comments?
Are there any therapies that are being tried out in clinical trials that you think show promise?
Yeah. So are there any therapies or clinical trials that show promise? There are some drug trials that I think show promise. We're not there yet. We're not there yet in terms of having a cure, but we are starting to look at medication that that covers the actual cause of Alzheimer's disease. So that's progress. And as we continue to do more research, that's something that hopefully we'll see more success with. What the best research that's come out lately, in my opinion, is really around brain health and brain engaging activities, things that can decrease your risk of dementia. So the big things there are nutrition, especially basically the Mediterranean diet, leafy vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats, those are great. And restorative sleep, getting enough sleep every night, physical exercise, making sure that you're walking even just 15 minutes a day, or if walking is hard, you're doing some arm exercises, getting that heart rate up a little bit, at least 15 minutes a day. And then socialization, brain engaging activities, and stress reduction. Those are the big 6 things that can reduce your risk of dementia or slow down some of the symptoms of dementia. And those can be really, really helpful and accessible to a variety of different levels of dementia or people who don't have dementia. I see some other questions in the chat. Is the Dementia Friends initiative available around the country? Yes. So Dementia Friendly America is the organization. Dementia Friends Virginia is the kind of champion organization here in Virginia. It's led through Leading Age Virginia, and they have Dementia Friends coalitions, action teams throughout the state. Let me find the website, the General Dementia Friends USA website. America, here we go. Because you can look up on the Dementia Friendly America website what are other places that you that might have a dementia friendly chapter, and if not, anyone can start a dementia friendly action team. So it's really available to everyone. I saw someone posted about virtual reality goggles with people who have dementia. Some nursing homes do offer those once a week. They can be a good hit. I saw someone else said virtual reality makes them nauseous. It's kind of the same. Very true. And it has to be case by case. In some cases, those can be really great activities. And we just have to watch that nonverbal body language, lots of sensory activities. And with technology, there's more and more we can do to really provide that. Cognicity is an online cognitive test. I haven't heard of that one, but yeah, if it's recommended by DHC or anything recommended by your doctor is a good idea to try to kind of track it. Brainguide.org also has a cognitive test, self-test you can kind of take. If you are looking for a specific cognitive test, one of the most common ones is just a screening tool. The MOCA, MOCA, is one cognitive test. Another one is the SLUMS. It's the St. Louis University Mental Status Exam, the MMSE Mini Mental Status Exam. Those are some screening tools that then will show, okay, is there any challenge with memory and cognition? If there's not, then that's probably it, where you will go from, and then if there is something screened in that test, you might go more into additional testing and more specific testing to find out what the actual problem is. question on vegetarian diet with less meat would matter in terms of affecting brain health. I am not a dietitian, so I don't know. I don't want to speak too much on that. I like to focus on what we know is really good for the brain. Omega-3 is great for the brain, so a lot of salmon. And generally anything that's going to be good for your heart is also good for your brain. Thanks, Cheryl, for sending that that Aging Matters podcast on the Dementia Friends Initiative. That is a great episode. What else? Any other questions or thoughts?
A question they've read recently about the effects of playing music from a person's earlier days.
Yes.
Have any insight into that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I missed that one. So that is actually a really really great tool. And there are some organizations that kind of do that. Vera Music is one, and Music and Memory. What people have found is that for individuals that are living with dementia, music is one of the last areas of the brain to be affected by dementia. And so music that people want to listen to from their earlier ages, typically when they're, you know, in their teens and 20s, is the most relevant music. It can sometimes bring up you know, some brain awareness, some activity. People might be able to sing along when they hadn't really previously been talking. And it can really have some great effects. And I see Liz had a note that sometimes there's a danger it could bring up depressing memories. That's true, and it can happen. So watching those nonverbal cues when you're using music is a great idea. So if you play a song and the person starts frowning or grimacing or tearful, then maybe we don't play that song again, or we skip to a new song. Sometimes though, people might have emotion at hearing music that might be sad, but it's not all bad. Naomi File was a social worker who did a lot with dementia, and her approach around how we validate feelings for people living with dementia, any negative feeling that we repress, or that someone living with dementia represses, is just going to fester and get bigger. So sometimes holding that space for big emotion can be helpful. Yeah, Naomi File isn't necessarily music therapy, but I will put her name in the chat, and she does validation therapy is a big one. And then there are some tools online you can read about music and memory, which talks some tips about how to find the most impactful music from someone's history. And then Vera Music is actually an app that you can get that will help you with that. I'll put these in the chat as well if you want to look up more information. And I saw, you know, Liz, your comment too, that bedside singers do have a whole repertoire of new calming music. Certainly, there are therapeutic ways to use new music as well. And even learning new music, singing along to new music can be great. What else? Any other questions?
Well, I had a comment. I thought the discussion of the logical brain and the emotional brain, and the fact that the logical brain fades away much more quickly was very interesting because
Oh.
for a number of years I visited a guy who had vascular dementia, and by the end, he had no idea who I was. But whenever I would walk around the corner and say, "Hi, Bill, how you doing?" he'd say, "There he is," and burst out in a big grin, shake my hand. So, he might not have been able to put a name to a face, but he knew we were friends.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. Even if he didn't know your name, he knew your face, and that when you came around, you were friendly and friends, and he probably had a good time. That's excellent. Anything else?
Well, there's something that I've been doing. It's called the Alzheimer's brain test that you take, every 3 or 6 months. And it's basically the same test, so you can track how your performance is changing over time. So that might be something people would be interested in.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I think any kind of screening and self-testing that we can do to establish that baseline and kind of stay on top of it is great, because if we know earlier if there's a challenge, then we can act earlier to try and slow the progression or come up with some coping strategies.
Jessica, I was just going to add on to what I had just put in the chat on. It was a couple of, I think actually it was last month, a woman named Barbara Hewlett. And that's why I put it in the chat. She had actually written a book about dementia interventions. And I mentioned the fact that she took care of her husband, two in-laws, as well as her grandmother, all of whom had dementia. And because she had dealt with this in so many different arenas, as it were, she wrote this book about caregiver interventions. And so I just wanted to share that with everybody, that it's really you can listen to the program on the link that I put in the chat, but the book is really good, and it's simple. It's not medical interventions. It's like thinking about the colors that you use in your home, or the way you arrange your furniture, or even technical devices. It's simple stuff that people can adopt or adapt to as if they are the caregivers of somebody who has a dementia, or if they are themselves, or they know somebody. So I just highly recommend. And interestingly, Barbara lives in this area. She's on the board of the Alexandria Commission on Aging. So she's a local person as well. So just wanted to give that plug, because it's a very good book to get.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions for Jessica? Wow, this was excellent in terms of providing lots of good information, Jessica. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been great to be here with all of you, and certainly, yeah, feel free to reach out with any other questions.
Okay. Well, it's let's see, what time is it here? It's 10:58, so we're almost at the end of our time together. Be sure and tune in next week. Coffee and Conversation is going to be more about local history. Local historian Paula Tarnopol Whitaker is going to talk about local history members and other kinds of information. I guess I see she's an author of A Civil Life in an Uncivil Time. I guess that could be applicable to whenever she wrote about it, and is right now as well. So be sure and hope that you'll be back with us next week on Coffee and Conversation. So unless I hear any other comments, I think we're done for the day. Gary, did you have any final comments?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.